Welcome to another episode of Positive Solutions for Life. This is Peggy Meyer. Today's guest is Francesca Siena. Francesca is the owner and founder of Artemisia Healing Arts in Tacoma and Sequim, Washington. She is a national and state certified reflexologist and is an intuitive healer practicing and teaching a mix of modalities tailored to support each individual in meeting their energetic health goals. So welcome to the podcast, Francesca.
Thank you, Peggy. Thank you so much for having me this morning. I
I am
appreciate that.
so excited for our conversation and
Yeah.
just learning everything. So with that, can you start us off by sharing just a little bit more about you and your journey and where it has led you, how it has led you to where you are today?
Well, in the interest of time, we're gonna keep it, you know, shorter. But I was born and raised in Italy. I was born in Milan, and growing up, always had a really keen interest in things that were not typically talked about under the Catholic, more patriarchal society that I grew up in. I mean, I was born in the late 60s, and so we still did not have a lot of vocabulary for a lot of things. And so I was always questioning things that typically put me a little bit in a position of discomfort with some folks, just because at Sunday school, some questions were not always, yay, she's asked this question about, a saint or something. But I was really eager to make sense of a lot of things.
Mhm, mhm,
And so when finally we had an opportunity to open up a little bit and I was able to purchase some books, I started to investigate further from a really young age. I was really attracted first to psychology. And my first book was actually by the author and psychologist Jung,
mhm.
Man and His Dreams and the symbology of dreams. And that fascinated me. It fascinated me how the subconscious and the archetypes, and then it led to the work of Joseph Campbell and yoga and so much expansion. But I realized that I needed to go to a place where there would be more and where there would be a complete openness to dialogue on all levels of lifestyles, diversity, and things that were still not quite where they are now in my original country,
Mhm.
my country of origin, I should say. So came to the US, started working in the natural food industry, which has always been a passion for me. Natural foods, healthy, physically healthy, which
Yeah.
led also to experiment with nutrition, with vitamins, with listening to other teachers, Paul Stamets. I mean, I can tell you, Paul Pitchford, incredible, incredible personalities.
Mhm.
And then going to school, the Seattle Waldorf School for the Steiner education for the teachers, and the Vibrational Health Institute, which is now the Daphne Michael Institute in Tacoma. Incredible exposure. So I was really like going for it,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so I was looking for my teacher, my Reiki teacher, and I could not find. Every time I contacted someone, oh, I'm not teaching anymore. Oh, I'm not doing classes in Tacoma. Oh, I'm not, and there
Mhm,
was always an obstacle. So I was like, whatever, it must not be my path.
mhm.
But as they say, when you're ready, the teacher appears. And so I was able and fortunate to meet my teacher, my Reiki teacher, and my Maha cranial teacher.
Okay.
And under her wings, I learned a lot in a really short period of time. And then I opened the business in 2019, just before the COVID pandemic.
Right.
Yes,
And
yes.
that itself was a whole nother episode. So that
Oh, yes, yes, yes. But without some of the modalities that I had learned,
Mhm.
I don't think that I would have been able to really stay in a place of clarity and of being grounded and of supporting other folks going through some of the most challenging times in their lives.
Right,
And while going through those challenging times myself.
right,
Mhm.
right. So you've mentioned a few of the modalities, can you expand and maybe just kind of give the listeners a little bit of what it is? Like what is Reiki?
Mhm.
And what is the cranial? I just forgot what I was going to say,
Yeah,
but go ahead.
yes, absolutely, no problem. So Reiki, I mean, it's really hard to describe because
Mhm,
when we Google Reiki, we see a lot of different things, and some
mhm,
things that seem a little far-fetched or far off, and it,
mhm,
it can it really alienate people from having an experience that is, oh, this is a really helpful, practical tool that I can use in my everyday life.
mhm,
So the teaching of Reiki come from Dr. Mikao Usui, a Japanese man who, if you passed me the term downloaded or received or understood
mhm,
how to work through the energetics of what surrounds us as an energetic field produced by our bodies and
Mhm.
by the earth, by working in synergy with this existing energy through particular symbols. The symbols is what can really frighten sometimes and throw people off because, again, we come from conditioned societies of myth and lore and things that may be related to darker work, which is not at
Mhm.
all what Reiki is.
Mhm.
Reiki is a work of light.
Mhm.
And by light, I mean that as an individual goes through the stages of attunement and receives these symbols as a way of working through them,
Mhm.
they are capable of supporting greater shifts and greater light directed towards a situation,
Mhm.
whether the situation is protecting a home, protecting a family, protecting an individual, or clearing a home, or clearing an individual from negativity or attachments that are detrimental to their physical and emotional health,
Mhm.
as well as in the Reiki practice, the practitioner is a conduit. So we don't decide, hey, this is good for you, let me do this, because we don't
Mhm.
know what the highest and best good for a person is.
Mhm.
So we are conduit of light for the individual and for their higher self and their spirit self to absorb and discern what is needed and where it goes.
Mhm.
And
So
so that's Reiki in a nutshell. I mean, it's really pretty quick.
yeah, yeah, but it's just really interesting because, you know, everything is energy.
Mhm,
And a lot of times energy is blocked for a lot of different reasons. And we may or may not understand that some things are blocked,
mhm,
and it can come out in different ways.
mhm,
Physical, issues, mental, emotional issues, or just kind of a sense of just something's not right.
mhm.
But you as a practitioner can kind of help, clear or kind of create that opening for that person to understand and feel that and unblock some of those things. Is that correct?
That is correct. And he is powerful work. And he's such a gift for me to be able to share it with others because,
Mhm.
as you said, oftentimes the symptoms of disease, whether it's emotional
Mhm.
or manifested in the physical form,
Mhm.
is the result of a blockage or a fracture, a splinter self.
Mhm.
Now, there's incredible work done by trauma therapists with which I actually work. I work with therapists all the time because their clients get to a point where they've gone through the physical, the rational, the logical, then they want more. They need to step into more.
Mhm.
And so we work in tandem
Mhm.
so that they can have a session, EMDR therapy or other, and
Mhm.
then a Reiki session, and things kind of start to loosen up.
Right.
And then we start to see what's under all that and how we can let it go. And the nervous system is really what I work with through the
Mhm.
Reiki, through the reflexology, and through the cranial,
Mhm.
and through the sound, because the subtle energy of the nervous system and the vagus nerve is really what we tap into to allow the body to heal.
Mm. Yeah,
Mhm.
and we're hearing a little bit more about that. At least I am. I haven't ever heard of the vagus nerve, much over, except for the last few years.
Mhm,
And I think
mhm.
it's just really kind of tuning into that. And you're using vibrations and sounds and different ways to approach that to be able to work with that nervous system, which is really key to like everything, isn't it, with our bodies?
Yes. And also, sometimes folks are not really keen on talking a lot.
Yeah,
When there's a trauma, the spoken word just doesn't get us there.
yeah.
But when we have maybe the sound of a Himalayan bowl or a crystal
Mhm.
bowl or a tuning fork,
Mhm.
these sounds just get the nervous system to
Mhm.
relax,
Yeah.
to get off of that fight, flight, or freeze response. And
Mhm.
then we're really able to actually stop the brain from going over in overdrive and
Mhm.
be really still. And we can begin to listen to ourselves. And I
Mhm.
have so many clients that come out of a session and like, first of all, they feel extremely rested, very relaxed, very light. But
Mhm.
also they said, I've forgotten of who I am. I've forgotten who I am, who I was until
Mhm.
I could center myself again. And that's where all the resources are.
Yeah,
As healers, we really don't do the healing. You do the healing.
right.
We are providing the environment for you to be safe and
Mhm.
process your stuff so that we can help you with that.
Yeah. Yeah, and an image that's coming to my mind is often when people are kind of stuck or, they're very rigid, but they're like armored,
Hmm.
they're very protective of themselves. and they don't sometimes know why, but they're kind of scared to like open up a little bit. But you
Yeah.
provide that safe spot to where it's safe to be open. It's safe to
Mhm.
really look within. It's not, nobody's going to come in and traumatize it at that moment. It's very, very safe.
Yes. And good point on your part to highlight that those who are armored up oftentimes are the hardest one to walk through that door.
Mhm.
And I see it, I see that fear or that tension. And yes, someone has to be ready. And so what comes up for me is that we're in such a time of crisis. And you probably already know that the word crisis origin in the Greek language, and it means decision. It means we are at an impasse. We have to decide, we have to make a choice, and it is a turning point.
Mhm.
And so sometimes we are guided through our dis-ease to this point of crisis so that we can make that choice.
Mhm.
And if we were more potentially trained or taught into this process, then we could reduce maybe the amount of crisis that it takes us to get there. But
Right.
we each have to learn through our own free will
Mhm.
the path that we're going to take.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, this might be a little off, but I was thinking like, how does someone start becoming more open to, you know, trying some new things,
Mhm.
trying something different? Because I don't, sometimes what we don't know, we're kind of like, we're a little hesitant to try because
Mhm.
it's just the unknown. We really don't know.
Yeah.
So how do you, you know, get people to open up a little bit and just be willing to try something else?
Trust.
Hmm.
And also, some of us are wired for adventures. And I am an exploratress extraordinaire. I always try something. I mean, there's certain things that I want. And I'll be honest, it takes me a minute to get to that place where I need to feel safe. I need
Hmm.
to feel that I'm with the right person.
Hmm.
But just a few weeks ago, I went to a local Wim Hof method trainer, Jennifer Ollie here in Tacoma, and we did cold plunge. So we learned the breath work, which, of course, is consistent with many other breath work that I've
Hmm.
tried in the past. But I wanted to learn, I wanted to experience and get over another fear of, this cold plunge. What is this? Let's find out, right?
Yeah.
Um, Same reason I tried acupuncture. I just wanted to get over my fear of needles. So what it is for me is I refuse to be entangled or enchained by fear. And every time a fear comes up for me, I know what's on the other side is freedom. And
Mm.
freedom is where every human being deserves to be.
Mhm.
The freedom of choice, the freedom of learning, the freedom of experiencing life in a way that opens them up to greater consciousness, greater awareness, greater happiness, greater joy, greater prosperity. And so without that freedom, it's really hard to get there because we have to expand to be able to hold more in our field, more
Mhm.
light, more joy, more prosperity, more ease, more compassion.
Yeah.
I am not the same person I was when I started. I'm certainly not.
Well, yeah, if we all look back, we're glad we're not the same person that we were, years ago. At least as those of us that are, looking to grow and looking
Mhm.
that curiosity of what is that? But I really liked how you said on the other side of fear is freedom. And I think everybody wants freedom, but some of us are just entangled in that fear. But if we can just kind of like maybe be curious about something, like you want to I really want to know what that feels like. Yeah. The closest thing to a cold plunge I has is turning on my well water for a shower. It's
Yeah.
a lot colder than the hotel cold waters. It's like that's
Yes.
about as close as I got so far. Um,
By the way, it's a lot harder to cold shower than to cold plunge.
oh, really?
Yes, because two areas of your body are feeling one cold, one warm, so it's harder instead of
Okay.
plunging. Just so you know, you are having
Okay.
the harder
Okay.
training.
So maybe I'm doing the hardest training I got there,
Mhm.
even if it's just for a little bit. So that's awesome. So, well, what other modalities? So like the cranial, can you
Mhm.
expand on that? Because I've heard that
Yeah,
from somewhere else, and I'm just really interested in just hearing a little bit more about that.
sure. Thank you. So the modality of cranial that I've learned is something different from the osteopathic cranial work. Similar, I'm sure, in many ways, but it's called Maha because the person who taught it, my teacher, patented that way, and she herself learned it through the Tibetan Cranial School in Colorado. So that particular type of cranial work works with the skull plates and works with jaw and cervical and upper shoulders, but also with gentle touches of the skull plate, we are able to communicate with the body how the alignment of the spine, which then communicates the alignment of the organs,
Mhm.
of all the tissue around it.
Mhm.
And so it basically can help from anyone who suffers from lumbar to low back pain, all the way to migraine and TMJ.
Mhm.
It's a very gentle, very subtle, and yet deep work that
Mhm.
is practiced on a straight table. So the Tibetan monks here were like, no, no padding, no nothing. We're gonna go on the table. And but also it includes a slight traction of the head and of the neck at the end of the session. And again, nothing is forced, nothing is, there's no pain,
Mhm.
there is no, cracking of the bones or any of that. Is more like, again, the nervous system relaxes,
Mhm.
the skull plates align by micro adjustments that the body itself provides.
Mhm.
And then oftentimes what happens is that the spinal cord begins to just also straighten and relax on its own, because finally it's in a position where it can.
Mhm.
Now, it's really hard to lay on the table like that when we are for years
Mhm.
here in a posture that is not quite straight. So we make adjustments and accommodations for our clients. But again, with different degrees of awareness or of tolerance, we
Mhm.
can adapt, and we can still provide profound work for those who are suffering from some of these really debilitating and chronic conditions.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, so that's just really interesting how, because our body is all supposed to be in alignment, and just little tiny shifts that we wouldn't even be aware of. I mean, we've been living it, right? So we don't know that we're kind of off a little bit. But
Mhm.
just micro adjustments, again, working with the nervous system within that
Mhm.
spinal cord area to be able to get all the rest of the organs, you know, fully working like they're supposed to.
Yes. Well, and also a lot of sinuses and a lot
Mhm.
of things that happen, and the TMJ is just something I see a lot of those, and trauma to the head. I mean, how many people have been in an accident
Yeah.
or fallen over and they're like,
Mhm.
oh, I'm good, but we know so much more about concussion. We know
Yeah.
so much more now about how debilitating long-term concussions can be.
Mhm.
So again, it's about choosing perhaps to have a little bit of everything. Like we go see a massage therapist, we go see our acupuncturist, we go see, our coach trainer, we
Yep.
go see our Reiki person and clear out some of that stagnant energy. So
Mhm.
it's all part of the well-being of a person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Because it looks like, it's not, you can pick and choose, some of these modalities that may work for
Yes,
you and just experiment, because some of them you might need once in a while and some might just feel good more often. I'm thinking
correct.
like the sound bowls, how, we just need some of that just probably every day. And
Oh, I do. And I use my sambal. I have her right here. I mean, I have quite a few of them, but this
uh
one is my, don't tell the other bowls, but this is my
okay,
favorite.
I won't tell.
So she is, like many Himalayan bowls, a combination of at least 7 metals. Some say the 7 metals are meant to represent the 7 planets in our solar system with their individual vibrations and
Mhm.
sounds, because, we know that each star has a certain frequency. We know this from science. And so this
Mhm.
is nothing, again, we're kind of coached to think, excuse me, separate of things, but
Mhm.
really not.
Yeah.
The frequencies, we have an electromagnetic field, our cells, our molecules, excuse me.
Mhm.
And so we do have a signature frequency, just like we have a signature DNA.
Mhm.
And we know some frequency we get along with a little bit better than others.
Right.
And so again, we can demystify a lot of things that are paradigms built in our consciousness that maybe keeps us out of date a little bit.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think what's coming up for me right now is kind of this thing of, you talked about it's hard earlier, you said it sometimes we don't have words for things. And I think energy, is one of those things that it's hard to like put into words. And I think a lot of too, like our emotions, sometimes we have these words for them, but not necessarily does it ring true when we try to speak the words, and try to make sense out of it. But I guess where I'm going is like, sometimes it's just hard to understand something because we can't put it in words,
Mhm,
but we feel it. Like that,
mhm,
we feel that energy, just like you walk into a room and you can feel that other person's energy and you can kind of gauge, what kind of mood they're in per se,
mhm,
or if they're a person that you may be open to trusting or not.
mhm.
So is that like how,
Yeah.
I don't know where I'm going with that,
I
but
resonate so much with what you're saying because that is very relatable. It's an experience that we all have.
Mhm,
So one thing I do is always use, well, sense of humor is, breaks down, laughter breaks things up and down.
mhm,
It's an icebreaker. And so we can always, and that connection that you were explaining, when we're trying to explain something, we're kind of creating a a way of getting to the other person and building a bridge so that we can both get there
yeah,
together.
yeah,
So, but ultimately, when I, for example, walk into a room and I feel a certain way, I always try to bring it back to me
mhm,
and to how I am experiencing why, so
mhm,
that I can understand more about what I'm doing and how also I am projecting. Because as soon as we enter a room and we feel defensive towards someone, we begin to appear defensive.
yeah,
It's really difficult not to. And
right,
so I become immediately self-aware. And my first thing is to try to kind of lower down my energy. Is almost like, I don't know, I never gone hunting, but I understand that we can project into nature and the animals become aware of our presence. So
mhm,
I try to make myself not small, but just a little bit closer to my energetic core.
mhm,
So the
mhm,
others have an opportunity to feel more relaxed and
mhm,
they feel, okay, I don't need to be afraid of this person, this way, or this room, or I can just
mhm,
pull closer to myself. And from there, I just begin a gentle breathing. And that way I can let go of my own personal attachments or judgment about a situation because we
mhm,
are humans. We are wired to scan an environment for safety.
yeah,
So of course judgment comes up. Of course, there's places where we go like, oh, I don't like this person sitting over here
mhm.
trying to walk on a plane, and you know,
So just
so yeah, and so
think
Reiki is
harder.
very great for that.
Yeah.
We can project into a space, an energetic of wellness, of calm,
Mhm,
of
mhm,
peace, of
mhm,
ease. And with that, helping other people, perhaps tuning into that energetic and feel themselves relieved from that tension.
mhm. Yeah, I know, because it's really, what you bring out some good points is that we do need to check in with ourselves, check in with the energy because whatever we're sensing out there, you know, kind of trying to understand where it's coming from within us.
Mhm.
And is that really what I want to project? Is that the energy that I really want to, or, ooh, I might need to close it down a little bit so, other people aren't you know, responding a certain way because
Mhm.
of that energy that I'm so it's tapping in and just said, and we can make that choice then, you know, by bringing it back to us, we can decide how we want to show up, how we want our energy to come out.
100%. You're so right. Absolutely. That's it.
And so that's great. Where can people find out more about you and
Mhm.
what you can do for them?
Sure. Thank you. So okay, I will say it right now. I have a Facebook page, but it's not my forte. I'm not a huge social media guru or anything like that. And so I use Instagram and I like Instagram because it's a little bit more quick and I love pictures. I'm really a fan of visuals. I learn visually. So at Artemisia Healing Arts is where you can find me. You can call me, of course, or text me. May I say my phone number?
Sure,
Sure.
sure.
It's 253-961-3181. Texts are great because it gives me a chance to read a little bit and then get back to you.
Mhm.
I operate both in Sequim and in Tacoma, and but I also do long distance. So if you live somewhere else and you want to have an experience of Reiki, remote Reiki, or sound bath, unfortunately, we won't be able to do reflexology or cranial because our hands-on.
Yep.
But a lot can be done at a distance, and we can chat. We can hear a little bit more about what you need and find maybe the right person for you in your area.
Yeah, right. Awesome. So I'll put those links in the show notes so
Thank
people can
you.
easily find that. So this has been great. I know I have, cleared up some of my questions about some of this energy healing and just really that it's it's just what we all need, and it's just a different way of, like you said, acupuncture, I'm thinking in my area, it's more like chiropractor, and
Mhm.
I don't know, all of those things, but they all kind of work to kind of align the body and get it to work to where it's supposed to be, right? In alignment and working
Yeah.
at its best. So thank you so much. So as we wrap up today, do you have a thought or a quote that you'd like to leave the listeners with?
I have two quotes, if I may,
Yes.
and they're actually both from Bob Proctor. I
Okay.
actually don't know, one might be somewhere else, but I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Yes.
And so one that I know for sure is Bob Proctor is see the invisible, believe the incredible, receive the impossible. Because so many of us are so good at tuning in, doing the work,
Mhm.
clearing up things, but then receiving, we're the worst at it. So try, please trust me, receiving is key. We have to believe that we're deserving. And
Mhm.
we need to begin by starting to open up to, hey, what if? What if this is true? What if this works?
Mhm.
What do I have to lose?
Yeah.
And so the other quote is moving from the paradigm of impossible to possible.
Mhm.
And again, it's a paradigm shift, and we have to question our paradigms.
Mhm.
They have carried us this far, but where else can we go? Where else can we learn, achieve, and where can we bring our communities to if we truly become the leaders that they need us to be?
Yes. Yes. Anything is possible. We're possible. And yes, just receiving that goodness, being open to receiving the light that you are within you and letting it shine to whatever is possible.
Thank you. You're the
Thank
best.
thank you so much for being here. I have enjoyed this conversation so much, and I know the listeners will as well.
Thank you. See you soon.